Hi, it's me, Bob, and I really hope you like this shirt because we're shooting like 5 of these goddamn things today. Alright, here's the thing that bugs me about a Han Solo movie. If Han Solo was that interesting before Star Wars, he wouldn't be Han Solo. No, stop, I don't give a shit about whatever the expanded universe had to say on the matter. Nope, nobody cares. Nobody cares. The whole point to Han Solo in Star Wars was he was a marginally charismatic, small-time crook they run into in the goddamn bar, who then eventually becomes a reluctant yet crucial part of the whole thing because shady crooks and smugglers and dirty dealers winding up with medals pinned on them, and suddenly they're like generals or captains or whatever, is a thing that often happens in insurgent rebel armies in wartime. He doesn't need an origin. Star Wars is the origin of the interesting part of his life. If he's already this reliable, heroic, complex, nuanced guy before that, it takes away from the payoff of this self-professed detached loner unexpectedly swooping back in to help Luke out during the Battle of Yavin. But you can't really do Han Solo movies set after Star Wars anymore. If you saw Hail Caesar, you know the kid they got to play him is the real deal. It's theoretically possible to do a backstory movie that isn't bullshit, or a mystique-destroying non-necessity origin thing, more Chewbacca. I mean, they got Donald Glover to play Lando, Woody Harrelson, Tandy Newton, Paul Bettany, Emilia Clarke. I've heard worse pitches, so how is it? It's pretty good, actually. I'm a little surprised. I feel like everyone was kind of assuming that this was going to be either bad or some kind of mess, given all the behind-the-scenes stuff, which, while certainly tumultuous, differs from other big movies, mainly in that you heard about it this time. Plus the fact that there were similar issues with Rogue One, and there's all that really, really stupid controversy with the previous Star Wars movie, where people who were way into The Last Jedi seemed to like it mostly because it was so different, and maybe they're not going to be into something more old school, and the guys who hated it, well, that's just gotten silly. But while everyone was fretting, Solo turned out to be pretty much the best possible outcome one could expect from an unnecessarily yet harmless Star Wars fill-in feature hammered together by a murderer's row of post-production talent and a reliable journeyman like Ron Howard. It's not a mold breaker like The Last Jedi or a curveball like Rogue One, but that's not really the aim here. The aim clearly is the prologue sequence from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, but as a whole movie and for Star Wars, and on those lines, it's probably the best possible version anyone could have any right to hope for, although somewhat frustratingly, it comes close to being great, but for me kind of scuttles that chance when it eventually has to stop being itself and start being a Star Wars movie again. And I get that that sounds weird. After all, it's a movie entirely about how familiar people from Star Wars come to acquire the familiar stuff from Star Wars, usually accompanied by an appropriate John Williams sting so the audience knows when to go, oh, that's where that came from. But narratively, it spends an admirable amount of its first and second act doing its own thing with the Lucasfilm toy box, mostly by leaning much harder than the rest of the franchise ever has on the space western hook, which no, was not invented by fucking Firefly, shut up. Framing young Han as an orphan grifter who goes from Imperial Army deserter to gunslinging wannabe outlaw when he hooks up with Woody Harrelson's scruffy crew of space train robbers and ends up in a convoluted quest involving smuggling, payoffs, gangsters, shootouts, chases, and double crosses, and if you're wondering if they go all the way and throw in a just a little too on the nose analog for boom towns, corrupt land barons, Native American raiding parties, and Chinese indentured railroad mining servitude, well, yeah, they do. But the thing is, all that stuff is most of the movie, and it all pretty much works. Whenever Solo is just cruising along going, yep, this is what we decided on. Han was a space cowboy for a bit, and that's when he met Chewie and picked up a bunch of his other stuff. Let's watch. It's almost perfect in-betweener Star Wars movie. Familiar but fresh, easygoing and exciting. The big initial train heist sequence is a killer. There's a whole big chaotic bit of business set around the mines of Kessel. I mean, you didn't think they weren't going to do that, did you? That spirals out into one of those quintessential Hollywood Western, everything goes wrong, 5 different agendas playing out, everyone shooting at everyone else, characters defined by action blowout spectacles. That's just everything I wanted from this and so much better than it has any right to be. And that energy just keeps up going right until it doesn't. Solo never turns bad, certainly, but there was a stretch where it was feeling like they actually stuck to the right course, held that terrific rollicking space cowboy tone, and decided not to succumb to the temptation to ultimately revert into a more conventional, true good versus pure fate of the galaxy evil Star Wars movie, and then they kind of do exactly that in a roundabout way, which is a letdown but not a serious deal breaker, and the actual fade out coda does a lot to earn back the fun. And I will say that as to the big spoiler I feel grudgingly obligated to not give away, I thought it was really dumb and unnecessarily and mostly just made me feel so very, very tired, and it especially annoyed me because it turned something I thought was just a cute inside joke earlier into foreshadowing, and it just feels like it's only there to set up stuff for other future spin-offs, and On the other hand, it doesn't really do anything negative to the story at hand or Han's characterization, so whatever. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be excited about it, so fine, it's fine. Alden Ehrenreich, like I said, absolutely works as Han. He's not doing an impression. He sells his version of the part. I bought it. Glover is a riot. His own movie can't get here fast enough. Woody is great. Big surprise, I know. Emilia Clarke has a sort of thankless beat to cover as a sort of femme fatale from Han's past who's tied into the reason for him going through all of this. She's good, even if the script keeps forcing her to slink around with an invisible yet conspicuous "ask me about my dark secret" sign hovering over her head. And Judah Suotamo continues to impress as the new Chewbacca. The scene stealer, though, turns out to be Phoebe Waller-Bridge as Lando's droid co-pilot L337. In more than one way, we've never exactly had a droid that's built or behaves exactly like this, and I think she's going to be a lot of people's favorite character, particularly in how she finally offers us some insight into how sentient droids actually feel about the weird space between person and property they occupy in the Star Wars universe. Solo is a minor, perhaps even disposable Star Wars thing, but maybe that's all it needed to be. It's a good time, it doesn't take itself too seriously, doesn't wear out its welcome, and left me energized and actually wanting to watch more Star Wars movies, even dumb ones spinning out from all of that. 3 stars. The Force did its job with this one.